All right. Hi, and welcome to the Two-Way Street Coffee House. We're here with Andrew Calhoun. He is going to perform tonight at our virtual concert that celebrates our 50th anniversary, specifically the 1970s. The first time that he performed at the Two-Way Street is 1977, and we're so excited to have him help us celebrate the anniversary. I've been a lifelong fan of Andrew, and it's just I'm getting goosebumps again talking with Andrew, just like we were talking with Lee just a little bit ago, and just so excited to have you here. So thanks for coming, Andrew.
Thank you. So it was 77. Do you know the date?
Uh, I do. I think it was. Didn't we say it was?
No, it was like
No,
April.
April. Yeah,
I think it was
I
April.
do have that. I just don't have it on me right now.
Yeah.
Oh, 77. Okay, so I was still in my teens.
You were
I
still,
was,
well, so let's talk a little bit about that. If you remember your first performance at Two-Way Street, or maybe
well,
some other memorable performances
I
you've had
don't
there over the years.
I don't remember my first performance. I remember auditioning for a guy named Jeff Kaiser, who was about my age, I think, and I played Icicles on the Water, which I'll play tonight. Um, which is it's a song I wrote when I was 15, and for like 20 years it was always the first song I'd play when I picked up the guitar. So that's the oldest song of mine that I still like perform. It's a keeper. So, but I don't remember the first performance. It was kind of a high school hangout back then, and kids would talk over you. It was hard to get the attention of the room, and then I played there a few times, and then I didn't play there for years. And then Dave Humphreys was like, it's a good gig now. Come back and play. I'm like, really? And it was like, yeah. I was like, oh, it's an excellent gig. Everybody's listening, and. So there were so many coffee houses around at the time that then they all just sort of blew away on the wind. But for some reason, the Two-Way Street well, it's really because of Dave, I think, a labor of love for all those years. And it became a place where in National X it was a good first gig in the Chicago area. It's a nice place to be able to recommend, like, to people on tour, like, well, you can get a gig here and you'll have an audience. It's a really good place to start. If you can't crack one of those club gigs where they never get back to you.
Hmm.
Right.
So when that at that time, were you living up in like Evanston or up on the north side at that time?
I moved into Chicago when I was 20. I lived in Rogers Park mostly, and then in Evanston after I had kids. When I was 19, my the mother of my children was renting a house in Downers Grove, just up the street from the coffee house, and she wasn't supposed to have overnight guests. So I'd leave at like five in the morning.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Oh, you heard it
I
first
know,
here.
right? It's like we're gonna break the internet with that juicy tidbit.
So,
yeah.
and then when I think of your career, well, it's so many folks admire your career and the work that you do. The thing that I like the most about it is how intense and how deeply you go into researching, trying to get to the bottom of, what are the original versions of things, or what is the history behind it that maybe we haven't heard the whole story on, or maybe heard the wrong story on. And so I admire
Yeah.
that about your work. And it seems like that ties into the Waterbug concept. The record company that you started. Can you tell us about that?
Um, yeah. I was When I started, I mostly did my own songs. And then over the years, it just branched into many different directions. But I think it's the same, as a songwriter, you want that sense of quest in your work, that you're searching for something and not just regurgitating what you already know. Like, that's what makes a song exciting to me, is that I feel like I'm engaged with something out there that I need to, find words and a form for. It's I love learning new things about stuff that's been under my nose all my life, like words. Like the other day, I was like, mineral. The word mine and mineral, those are like the same. and it just struck me. I've been using the word all my life. And that happens to me all the time. And it's great with songs, familiar songs, and then you learn a story about them or who wrote them, and it makes it so much richer. Um, so Waterbug, back in the 80s, there was hardly any place to play in Chicago. There was the No Exit Coffee House is the place that spanned a long time in Chicago. And that was a great, great little gig. But there were no, I don't know, it was just like the scene was dead. I wasn't hearing any songwriters. I was like, has everyone gone into software engineering or something? And then I went down to Kerrville, Texas Festival in 1990, and I met Cat Eggleston there, and Steve Fisher that year. And I just go back every year. I felt like I was meeting my tribe, 91, Hugh Blumenfeld, Michael McNevin were there. 92, Cozy Sheridan was there, and Tom Payne, Chuck Brodsky. And I mean, some really exciting things going on with songwriting, and none of us had two nickels. So I borrowed some money from my dad to put out this album called American Impressionist Songwriters to present, songwriting as fine art instead of, oh, this might be a hit, And I cooked up this idea with Cozy actually at Kerrville, because she was putting out her own album and I was putting out my own album and the Impressionist thing. National distributors look for a flow of product. So we ended up being an artist cooperative where everyone would fund their own project. But because we had a flow of product, we were able to get national distribution through what was first called Rounder, and then it was called Distribution North America. And there was a whole train wreck with the record business. But we ended up with a little distributor in California called City Hall. They were just great. Distribution North America got bought out by this huge, what's called a one-stop called Valley. And then they dropped us because we were too spiky, whatever that meant. And then they went under. So thank God we got paid before they went under. We were lucky. And I was sitting in my office, and I'd been to one of these, they were called NAIRD conferences then, Independent Record Distributors.
National Association of.
I can't believe I did this stuff because I'm such an introvert. But I put on a suit and I went and I met these people and presented things. And I remembered that, that company from California, they were just going national when I was talking to them. But I really liked them. And so I just called the office, and the secretary answered, and I asked to talk to whoever the guy was. And I said, it's Andrew from Waterbug. And she said, oh, Walter's wearing a Waterbug t-shirt today. It's one of the guys I met at the conference, like 3 or 4 years before. And they picked us up and, paid us, ever since. I've just closed this year. But they paid me in full, and it was just had a little luck there. One of the best things we did was the artists would all contribute. This is before there was YouTube and downloads and everything else. We'd made what we called the Waterbug anthology. So we'd have 20 tracks on these CDs, and everyone would sell them for $5. So everyone would kick in $150, which would cover the cost of making it. So, and there was mail order info on it, and they'd go free to every mail order customer. So it was a way for artists to share and the audience with one another, thinking about cooperation beats competition was kind of the idea. I read a book called Guerrilla Marketing, I remember, by what's his name? Anyway, it was, guerrilla marketing, but it was a really good book because he gave
read that one.
He said he had a lot of ideas, and it gave me a lot of ideas. And he said, your company doesn't have an image, it has an identity, and it's based on how you treat people. It's through those relationships with your customers. And so instead of feeling like you have to be some, putting on a show, or it's all very genuine, and it works,
Sounds
So
organic. Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
nice when we had the 800 number. People would call up and I'd talk to them about music. And, it was nice. I never got tired of sending out mail orders of good music. It was a nice feeling. And I loved helping people get started. Um, just if somebody had a gift or a spark that I could, we the folk DJs loved the label, and so at least they could get the box opened and get a fair hearing. So that
What
was good. Of course,
um
the entire ground has shifted since then. If I was starting a company now, I don't know what I would do, but I'm sure the young people will figure out what to do.
what was your involvement with Flying Fish?
They did. I did. My first album was on Hog-Eye Records, which was right out of Hog-Eye Music when it was Jan and Ann Hills Berta, they were called then. Ann Hills, Jan Berta owned it, and they started a little label. It was their album, and I think Bob Gibson and my album Water Street, and uh, and that got me some attention. And then Stuart Rosenberg took my music to Flying Fish, Bruce Kaplan, and got a production budget to make The Gates of Love, and
Nice.
walked me to the war. So, yeah, that was a nice thing.
So right now, is it 4 books that are in print and another couple that are digital? Is that right?
Oh, I don't know. I
Like a couple of
I
books of
made the mistake
poems,
of
right?
publishing 2 books of poems, and like years later you look at them and you go, "There's only 5 good poems in here." I should have waited, but at least there's 5 good poems in there.
It
So
sounds like you
I
need a best of.
Yeah,
And
right.
two little books of poems, and I did a humor book called the Trilogy. That's really a trip. It was
and then yeah.
I did a autobiography of my life on the folk scene in puns. It's pretty funny.
And then I see some of it's available on your website, or all of it
Yeah,
is, I believe. And then
Andrewcalhoun.com. Yeah, I did an ebook of. I mean, I was never this much of a punster. When I got on Facebook, it's the perfect format for downloading these stupid puns. So
I love them
I
personally.
just collect them and I did a book. So when I was raising money for the project with my daughter, um, yeah,
Well, tell us more about
we used
that.
one of those as a Kickstarter, reward. That was one of our first gigs. We were booked, me and Casey were booked together. We didn't sing together that much when we were growing up. I mean, she loved a couple of the Scottish songs I'd sing, but she sang with her mom, who has a great harmony ear, um, and with her stepmother, Kat Eggleston. They're still close. So she got good harmony training. And it was a month after my mother died in 2006. I was playing at Bill's Blues in Evanston, and I said, "Casey, come up and sing a song with me." I don't know why I said that, and she came up and we sang this English folk song called "Banks of Sweet Primroses" that we both knew, and it was just a thing. Cameras start going off, and we just started singing together, and it was just a joy. And we spent a whole summer busking in Fountain Square in Evanston, and really got loose with the music. This is interesting because we did almost everything together there. But there was this one day I thought, well, I want to do this one song by myself. It's a song of mine called Slippery Fish.
Hmm.
And she looked at me and she said, "You're going to play Slippery Fish." I'm like, how did she know? She just had that intuition. And then that same song, well, you know this, Joel. I was remembering a story from Two-Way Street. Um, and it was a question a man asked me when I was in my 20s. And he said, um, "Is it easy for you to write songs?" I said, "Yes, but everything else is hard." It was true at the time. And Slippery Fish is kind of about that. It's about being an artist with a calling you can't let go of. And then maybe you're not the easiest person try to get along with all the time. So
But only the gold is good enough.
so I started learning the song again and working it up better for this gig. And we talked last night to do the sound check, and you said "Slippery Fish," and I was like, "There's poltergeist with that song." So I'll definitely be playing it.
Andrew, can you tell us about the book you're working on now?
I've been working on a book of Robert Burns songs. Lily Kuzma asked me to do a set of Burns songs for his birthday in 2015. And, I knew a few songs. I've always liked Burns songs. But I'd become a researcher and developed this set of skills since I'd learned them. And I started digging and digging and digging. And my God, I've been at this for 6 years. I'll just give you one illustrative example. There's a very famous song called "My Love Is Like a Red, Red Rose." It's the song that turned Bob Dylan on to songwriting. You encountered it in a poetry textbook. And Burns really assembled it from traditional imagery from traditional songs, but it's unique. And he set it to a tune by Neil Gow, who's the most famous fiddle composer of 18th century Scotland. So you'd think would be a big deal, but it was never published correctly. His publisher had this musical editor who would just change things at will. So, and he also printed it with a stray verse hanging off the end, so nobody could figure out how to sing it with the tune. And another guy put it with a different tune, which if you go on YouTube, you won't hear anyone singing the actual melody, except Jean Redpath. But she didn't have the original melody. She had the corruption of it. So she sings, "Oh, my love's like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June." But there's a grace note on rose that jumps an octave, which is very unusual in the fiddle literature. So the rose springs. The rose actually springs. So this is what Burns is always doing with melody and imagery, is drawing pictures. And yet so much has been missed because they haven't been published correctly. So here's Neil Gow's melody. "Oh, my love's like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love's like the melody that's sweetly played in tune," and so on. So that's what I'm doing.
Difference.
Retrieving the correct tunes, and sometimes the texts as well. And I'll show it. This is what I'm doing. I finished a phase of singing through all the scores and digging out more bass.
Wow.
396 songs. Some of them are ballads he collected that he didn't write, but I'm just giving the picture of his work and putting it in categories because he's credited for songs he didn't write all the time. Like he might have collected something and changed, a half a verse. So there's this whole spectrum, and I'm trying to just clarify the legacy for people. But man, it's just he's so good, Poetry language is just gorgeous. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming out of the research library / basement to come do a concert for us.
Right.
I'm happy to get this, this done before the concert because it's good.
I'm looking forward to that book. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
It's going to be called Glorious Work, which was his own. He said to his publisher, "I've just acquired Oswald's Music of Scotland, and I shall make glorious work of it." That was 550 tunes. So wow. Burns played the fiddle and he was a country dancer. He's a very sociable poet. And he's what's called the Scots Musical Museum was 600 songs. And it was supposed to be 200, but he got involved as editor and driving force behind this project. And it was really an attempt to salvage and save Scots culture because the upper crust was going in the English direction. And if they'd given up their actual way of speaking and their music, it wouldn't be a Scotland today. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I feel like the Two-Way Street, the venue, has a presence to it. And we talked about it at Soundcheck, where if you just go in the room, it's almost as if you hear the echo of the 2,500 or so concerts that have been in that room
yeah,
and
there's
all the
music in the
sing-arounds,
wall.
you
Music in
know?
the walls, yeah.
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 And there's a
Walking in
presence to it.
past those, stained glass windows with the glow, it's a nice feeling.
And I feel like, to me, your career has that too, that kind of weight that carries, the experiences you've had, the people you've worked with, the milestones you've had in your career, the successes. And so it's just an honor to have you, and it's going to be a great show tonight. So thank you so much for doing the interview.
You're welcome.
Yes. And thank
I,
you for all you've contributed, not only to Two-Way Street throughout the years, but definitely just the folk community. So you are an amazing artist, and we're so excited for the show tonight.
Thanks, you guys, for doing this.